Look closely at the world around you. Beyond the headlines, beneath the surface of our daily lives, a profound disease is spreading. It's not a virus that attacks the body, but a pervasive sickness of the human spirit. A collective neurosis that silently erodes our capacity for genuine connection, authentic expression, and true freedom. This isn't merely a metaphor. It's a chilling diagnosis delivered by a man ahead of his time, Wilhelm Reich, who called it the emotional plague. We've explored the cosmic dance of orgone, the tragic murder of Christ, as a symbol of humanity's self-betrayal. Today, we confront Reich's most unsettling and perhaps most relevant concept, the emotional plague. This isn't just a historical footnote, it's a living, breathing pathology that shapes our modern world. It's the unseen force behind the endless cycles of conflict, the pervasive anxiety, the crushing conformity, and the profound sense of isolation that defines our age. What if the chaos we perceive isn't random, but a predictable outcome of a collective psychological illness we refuse to acknowledge? This episode will dissect the anatomy of the emotional plague, how it infects individuals, manifests in society, and perpetuates a cycle of suffering. We will expose its subtle mechanisms, its devastating consequences, and, most importantly, explore the radical path to immunity proposed by Reich. This isn't just a story, it's a survival guide for the soul. Join us as we confront the global neurosis and discover how reclaiming our inner freedom might be the only way to heal the world. Reich's groundbreaking work revealed that the emotional plague begins not in grand societal conspiracies, but within the individual human body. He observed that chronic emotional conflicts, particularly the suppression of natural impulses and feelings, lead to the development of what he termed character armor. This armor is a system of muscular rigidities and energetic blocks that, while initially serving as a defense mechanism against pain, eventually becomes a rigid prison, trapping vital life energy orgone and distorting our perception of reality. Imagine a child, vibrant and open, experiencing a profound emotional wound. To cope, they instinctively tense their muscles, hold their breath, and suppress the overwhelming feeling. Over time, these temporary defenses solidify into permanent physical and emotional barriers. The spontaneous flow of life energy is constricted, and the individual becomes a fortress, protected from pain, but also cut off from genuine joy, intimacy, and their own authentic self. This individual armoring, Reich argued, is not an isolated phenomenon. It is the fundamental building block of the emotional plague at a societal level. A society composed of armored individuals will inevitably project its internal rigidities onto its external structures. Governments become authoritarian because their leaders, themselves, armored, fear genuine freedom and spontaneity. Religions become dogmatic, clinging to rigid doctrines because their adherents, bound by their own armor, fear the unpredictable, divine spark within themselves. Educational systems become stifling, designed by armored minds to produce compliant rather than creative citizens. The very systems we create to manage our collective lives, born from individual neuroses, then reinforce those neuroses in a vicious self-perpetuating cycle. The emotional plague, in this context, is the systemic, institutionalized suppression of the life force itself, leading to a global neurosis that manifests in every corner of our existence. Reich observed the emotional plague manifesting in every facet of human society, in the relentless pursuit of power, in rigid ideological dogmas, in destructive economic systems, and in the pervasive fear and distortion of sexuality. It is the insidious force that drives us to persecute those who challenge the status quo, those who dare to embody a different way of being, a more alive, more natural, more authentic way of living. It is the collective shadow that seeks to extinguish any light that threatens its comfortable darkness. This is why genuine creativity is often met with ridicule, why authentic emotions are suppressed, and why true freedom is feared. The emotional plague thrives on conformity, control, and the systematic suppression of individual vitality. It seeks to deaden the living, to mechanize the human, and to prevent the spontaneous flow of life. But if this plague is so pervasive, so deeply ingrained, is there any hope for humanity? Or are we doomed to repeat this cycle of suppression and destruction forever? Reich believed there was a way out, a path to liberation, but it required a radical confrontation with our own inner demons and with the collective pathology of our society. And it begins with understanding the true nature of this global neurosis and how it manifests in our daily lives. The emotional plague doesn't just reside within individuals. It echoes through the very structures of our society, manifesting in ways we often mistake for normal or even progress. Consider the relentless pursuit of power and control in politics. For Reich, this wasn't merely about ideological differences. It was about armored individuals, driven by their own unacknowledged fears, and anxieties, seeking to impose their rigid internal structures onto others. The demagogue, for instance, doesn't just manipulate, they tap into the collective emotional plague, exploiting the unexpressed frustrations and anxieties of the mass, promising order in a chaotic world, but ultimately leading to further repression and a deeper entrenchment of the plague. The emotional plague also casts a long shadow over our economic systems. The insatiable drive for accumulation, the commodification of human relationships, the relentless exploitation of natural resources. These are all symptoms of a society profoundly disconnected from its own life force. When genuine pleasure is feared and spontaneity suppressed, the only remaining outlet for energetic discharge becomes the pursuit of external gratification. This leads to an insatiable hunger for material possessions, superficial experiences, and endless consumption, creating a society of armored selves constantly seeking external validation rather than finding fulfillment within themselves. It's a perpetual state of more, driven by an internal less. Look at the way we raise our children, often stifling their natural spontaneity, curiosity, and joy in the name of discipline or order. This early armoring creates individuals who are compliant but emotionally stunted, perfectly suited for a society that values conformity over creativity. Our workplaces often demand the suppression of authentic emotions, rewarding those who can maintain a professional facade, even at the cost of their own well-being and mental health. And our media, constantly bombarding us with fear, anxiety, and manufactured desires, further reinforces the emotional plague, keeping us in a state of chronic tension and energetic depletion. In every sphere of life, from the personal to the political, the emotional plague seeks to control, to deaden, to destroy the living, and to prevent genuine human connection. But if this plague is so pervasive, so deeply ingrained in our collective psyche, is there any hope for redemption? Can we, as a species, break free from this eternal cycle of self-betrayal and self-destruction? Reich believed we could, but it required a radical act of self-awareness, a courageous embrace of our own suppressed life energy, and a willingness to challenge the very foundations of our armored society. And it begins with the resurrection of our true selves. Reich's emotional plague of mankind is not a message of despair, but a profound call to action, a blueprint for collective resurrection. If the plague is the suppression of life, then the cure is the conscious re-engagement with our own natural unarmored selves. It's about breaking free from the emotional plague, shedding our character armor, and allowing our inherent life energy, our argon, to flow freely once again. This is not a passive process. It requires courage, self-awareness, and a willingness to confront the discomfort of releasing long-held tensions and suppressed emotions. This resurrection begins within each of us. It's about daring to feel our emotions, even the uncomfortable ones like anger, sadness, and fear, without judgment or suppression. It's about reclaiming our natural sexuality, our spontaneity, our creativity, and our innate capacity for pleasure. It's about challenging the internalized voices of repression and conformity that tell us to behave, to be normal, to fit in. It's about cultivating genuine self-love and self-acceptance, recognizing that our authentic selves are inherently good and vital. For Reich, personal liberation was the first, crucial step towards societal transformation, because a healthy society can only be built by healthy individuals. And as individuals awaken, so too can society. When enough people shed their armor, when enough people reclaim their life energy, the emotional plague begins to recede. New, more life-affirming social structures can emerge. Education can become a process of fostering natural growth, rather than suppressing it, encouraging curiosity, critical thinking, and creativity instead of rote, memorization, and conformity. Politics can transform into a genuine expression of the collective will, rather than a tool of control, with leaders who serve the people rather than dominate them. Relationships can be built on genuine love, empathy, and respect, rather than fear, manipulation, and power dynamics. The kingdom of heaven on earth, for Reich, was not a mystical fantasy, but a tangible possibility, achievable through the liberation of human energy and the dismantling of the emotional plague. It is a vision of a society where life, not neuroses, reigns supreme. The message of the emotional plague of mankind is a challenging one, but it is also profoundly hopeful. It reminds us that the power to change our world lies not in external forces, but within our own capacity for life, for truth, for love. It calls us to be the resurrected ones, to embody the very principles that society has so long sought to suppress. It urges us to become conscious agents of change, to heal ourselves so that we can heal the world. The future of humanity depends on our willingness to embrace our own divine nature, to live authentically, and to finally end the eternal cycle of self-destruction driven by the emotional plague. Wilhelm Reich, like many prophets before him, was ultimately murdered by the very forces he sought to expose. His books were burned, his work suppressed, his life ended in a federal prison. But the truth, like life itself, cannot be permanently extinguished. And in the echoes of his words, in the blueprint he left behind, we find the path to our own resurrection. Wilhelm Reich's The Emotional Plague of Mankind is more than a book. It's a mirror held up to humanity, reflecting our deepest fears and our greatest potential. It's a clarion call to awaken from the slumber of the emotional plague, to reclaim our birthright of joy, freedom, and genuine connection. It's a profound reminder that the path to salvation lies not in external saviors, but in the courageous embrace of the life force within every human being. It is a journey of self-discovery, self-healing, and ultimately, collective liberation. Reich's story is just one thread in history's darkest pattern. Next time, we expose how the same forces silenced other visionary thinkers, those who dared to challenge the emotional plague and paid the ultimate price. Welcome to the Library of Banned Thinkers.